At the end of this topic, you will be able to describe immunity, distinguish between antigen and antibody, categorize the types of immunity, list out the vaccines, dosages, and administering age. Immunity is the defense system of our body. It is nothing but a kind of protection against or having resistance towards the infectious organisms and their toxic products. The toxins produced by the infectious organisms or any foreign protein entering the body are called antigens. The immune system of our body, namely blood plasma, lymph and lymphocytes, etc., analyze the chemical nature of the antigens and produce the suitable substances called antibodies to detoxify the antigens. Antibodies are protein in nature.
Immunoglobulin, IgG. Immunoglobulin is a class of proteins produced in the blood or other bodily fluids such as plasma cells of vertebrates. They act as antibodies in the immune system. Each molecule of immunoglobulin consists of two pairs of polypeptide chains of different sizes. They are light chain and heavy chain as shown here. Disulfide bonds are present between the two heavy chains and between the light and heavy chains. The region marked as V is called the variable region as they show wide variation in amino acid sequence and form the antigen combining sites called paratope. The variable region is also called as FAB region or hotspots as it has the fragment of the antigen binding site. The region marked as C is called constant region as it has unvarying amino acid sequence. This region is also known as FC region, where FC stands for fragment of constant.
Immunity is classified basically into two types, namely natural and acquired. Natural immunity is available right from the birth, and acquired immunity is the one which is developed after birth. Acquired immunity is again divided into active and passive. In case of active acquired immunity, antibodies are produced by antigenic stimulus, whereas in passive, it is preformed from birth. Active acquired immunity, in turn, is divided into natural and artificial. Natural active acquired immunity is developed after recovering from a particular pathogenic infection, but artificial active acquired immunity is developed by administering vaccines. Passive acquired immunity is again divided into two types, namely natural passive acquired and artificial passive acquired. In natural passive acquired, antibodies for the baby is got through the mother's milk. In artificial passive acquired, antibodies are extracted from other animals and then introduced into the child's body. The immunity which trails with us right from our birth is called natural or innate immunity. Natural immunity enables an individual to resist the diseases. For example, animals are never affected by the diseases that plants contract. Acquired or specific immunity is the resistance against some infectious diseases after an infection of that particular disease. There are two different kinds of acquired immunity, namely active acquired immunity and passive acquired immunity. Immunity developed by a body during the first infection of any pathogen is called active acquired immunity. The antibody produced during infection stays in the blood for a long period and kills the similar pathogens whenever they enter the body. There are two types of active acquired immunity as follows. In natural active acquired immunity, the antibody's production is naturally stimulated after the recovery from a disease. In case of artificial active acquired immunity, antibody synthesis is stimulated artificially by applying vaccines or any other man-made methods. For example, administering polio vaccine, DPT vaccine, etc.
Vaccination. Vaccination is a form of immunization in which killed or weakened microorganisms are introduced into the body. In response to the microorganisms, the body will develop antibodies against. If the same type of microorganism later enters the body, they will be destroyed by the antibodies. The antigens of dead pathogens are injected into the body. As soon as the antigens enter the body, the lymphocytes detect them. Once they start detecting them, they produce antibodies and memory cells. The antibodies stay for a few days and then disappear, but the memory cells stay for many years. When a live pathogen of the same type infects the body, then the memory cells immediately develop antibodies and destroy the pathogen.
In passive acquired immunity, a ready-made antibody is introduced from outside rather than stimulating the body to produce antibody with antigenic stimulus. Passive acquired immunity is of two types: natural passive acquired immunity and artificial passive acquired immunity. When the ready-made antibody is taken from the mother's blood into the fetus, it is called as natural passive acquired immunity. If the ready-made antibody is given to an individual which has to take from some other animal's extract, it is called as artificial passive acquired immunity, but this is not a permanent immunity. Immunization means administering vaccines to prevent the disease. Immunization develops artificial active acquired immunity. Through immunization and inoculation, a greater number of people are protected against the diseases. BCG tuberculosis vaccine prevents tuberculosis. DPT vaccine prevents diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus. DPT is otherwise called as triple antigen. MMR vaccine prevents mumps, measles, and rubella. DT vaccine prevents diphtheria and tetanus, and this vaccine is otherwise called as dual antigen. TT vaccine prevents the children from tetanus and toxoid. The immunization schedule is a chart which indicates the different stages at which the vaccinations and inoculations have to be administered to safeguard children against different diseases. The table indicates the names of vaccines, their dosages, and the administering stage. In this topic, you have learnt immunity is a defense system of our body which protects us from infectious organisms and gives resistance. The toxins produced by the infectious organisms are called antigens, and the chemical substance produced by our body to detoxify them are called antibodies, which are protein in nature. Immunity is divided into two types, namely natural and acquired. Natural immunity is available right from the birth, and acquired immunity is developed after birth. Acquired immunity is again divided into active and passive, and in turn it is divided into natural and artificial. Artificial active and passive is natural passive and artificial passive. Immunization is administering vaccines to prevent the disease which develops artificial active acquired immunity. The immunization schedule is given by the government, which indicates the different stages at which the vaccinations and inoculations have to be administered to safeguard children against different stages. BCG, DPT, MMR, DT, etc. are some of the vaccines which are administered to children to prevent them from diseases like TB, diphtheria, tetanus, etc.